Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in this part of the world. Welcome to another session of my presentation series, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Working Happiness, talking to the engineer. This time, the title of my presentation is Why the Choice and Deep Penetration of Wind Energy Resources, also known as inverter-based resources, or the acronym that is used for it is IBR. My good name is John Kweku Amotu, and I'm a professional electrical engineer for the past 31 years, and I'm based in the United States of America. Now, if you listen to my presentation and you like my presentation, don't forget to select the like button that's shown in the YouTube channel, Working Happiness, talking to the engineer. Don't forget to share with your friends and select the subscribe button. Down below that is my YouTube channel, and there are tons and tons of presentation materials for your learning career, and also for you young engineers out there, also a very good learning resource for you to develop your career. Next, it's the main drivers for wind energy. What are the main drivers for wind energy? And on the right-hand side, as you can see, that is a picture of a wind turbine blade. So this is one of the three turbine blades that are attached to the wind turbine. Right? Okay, so if you have the hub here, right, these are the blades that are attached to. So this is one of them. So you can see how massive these wind turbine blades are. And this is just for one wind turbine. So just imagine if you have a wind farm that consists of hundreds of these wind turbines. That amount of visual impact it can have. Okay, so now let's pivot on what are the main drivers for wind energy. The first one is global efforts. As you know that many leaders, many countries all over the world are basically vouching, pushing, and basically putting in a lot of efforts to have greenhouse emissions reduced by 80% by the year 2030. As such, there is the need for many countries to look for renewable energy resources. And wind energy and solar PV has been one of the main, out of the many renewable energies out there that is being pushed for implementation. So there's greater penetration percentage-wise, about 40% on renewable energy. The goal is to achieve about 50 to 60% portfolio matrix share of renewable energy by the year 2050. Next is net zero carbon reduction. As you know that for traditional energy sources, for power plants, for generating electric power, has been coal, natural gas, oil, and nuclear, right? Okay, so the combustion of coal, the combustion of natural gas, the combustion of oil, right, all results in the emission of pollutants into the atmosphere. And matter of fact, to be specific, emission of carbon dioxide. So, as much as global leaders all over the world are vouching for the reduction of carbon dioxide by the year 2050. So the goal is to basically to have a net zero, right? So by the year 2030, their goal is to have about 70 to 80% reduction. And by the year 2050, a total zero, net zero carbon reduction. So that, but in the year 2050, anything that emits carbon dioxide into the atmosphere shouldn't basically be a source of energy for power production. That is what net zero carbon reduction means. Next is increased demand of power by customers. Yes, as much as there's a lot of industrialization in needs for electric power, many technologies, many industries, springing up, and also many city loads springing up due to increase in population, right? So, as such, because of this increased demand of power, right, to build our power plants takes a longer period of time, and the other constraining factor is the need to reduce carbon dioxide, right, by the year 2030 and by the year 2050. As such, there's the push for renewable energy, right? And that is another, because to install wind power plant or solar PV, that is has a shorter duration, shorter construction cycle compared to a traditional power plant. So, because of the increased demand of power, there's that push to have a lot of wind farms and solar PVs to be installed to provide that energy, and also leverage on the need to have carbon reduction by the year 2030 and also 2050 by supporting that effort and that goal. Next is disruptive technology, right? Disruptive, the word disruptive means a game changer. That's what it means, It means that a technology that comes in to displace an existing technology. And if it displaces the existing technology, it basically outperforms it, right? It improves the efficiency of the processes, right? And also a better output compared to the existing technology. So that's what disruptive technology means. Okay, so as you can see, there is a lot of effort, research effort, that has basically led to this disruptive technology to support the power electronics for the wind turbine technology. And one of them is type 3 wind turbine and type 4 wind turbine, right? Type 3 wind turbine is a double-fed induction generator, which basically utilizes a partial scale converter, right? We have the rotor end converter and the AC grid end converter, which is basically integrated together through a DC bus, right? This is a partial scale converter, which basically is designed to handle 30% of the capacity of the wind turbine, and at the same time be able to achieve a bidirectional control of active and reactive power, right? So the flexibility to be able to achieve active and reactive power control makes it, a better choice for these wind farms, and also to be able to integrate to the grid, in terms of a grid connection, right? It makes it easier based on grid codes to integrate to the grid and feasibly to prevent basically unreliable operation when it is integrated to the grid. Then again, type 4. Type 4 is permanent synchronous generator, right? Okay, so this type of wind farms basically has a stator, right, that has a permanent magnet on it, right? So basically what it does is it utilizes a full-scale converter, right? So the full-scale converter allows flexibility in the control. Basically, the flexibility in the control of active and reactive power exchange with the grid basically supports its integration to the grid to meet the grid code requirement. Because let's talk about the grid code requirements, right? The grid code requirements are active power support, reactive power support to improve voltage regulation support, then frequency support, right? So these converters have that inherent capability, that embedded capability to be able to provide that active power that is needed, right? And the reactive power that is needed to basically regulate the voltage at the point of common coupling. Then again, you have the ability to achieve a hybrid wind plant by basically integrating a wind farm plus a solar PV plus a battery energy storage system, right? So what these three sources of wind, sources of power generation sources is they complement each other, right? Through an energy management system. So when you have a low wind velocity, right? That is when the solar PV comes into play, right? To provide the required power that you need. Then when you have you don't have enough sunshine, or let's say if you have a fault on your solar PV, and at the same time you have an unreliable source, the wind velocity is so low that basically it doesn't allow the wind turbines to be energized, then that is when the battery energy storage system, a utility scale battery energy storage system that can provide active power, right, to regulate the frequency of the grid for 3 to 4 hour period, right? There are, there are research that is currently going on to achieve a battery energy storage system that can provide about 10 to 15 hour active power support, right? So hopefully by the year 2025, that battery energy storage system technology should be out. Okay, so this the support for disruptive technology basically is also one of the main drivers for wind energy, and the springing of a lot of these wind farms and solar PV farms are all over the world to leverage and also leveraging on the need to achieve a net zero carbon reduction by the year 2050 and also 80% greenhouse emissions by the year 2030. Then again, getting carbon credits, right? And the ability to also trade in carbon credits. Next is disruptive power electronics, right? This is a disruptive technology for the converter itself, right? Okay, so there's something they call MMC converter, right? That is a modular multi-level converter. MMC means modular multi-level converter, right? Okay, so this is the state of the art, one of the best technologies out there that basically utilizes sub-modules, right? So the sub-modules, we have different technologies for the sub-modules. We have half-bridge and full-bridge, right? Okay, so each technology has its attributes, advantages and disadvantages, right? An example for the half-bridge is it has a smaller, lower number of IGBT switches, insulated gate bipolar transistors, right? So it results in lower cost and lower conduction and switching losses. On the other hand, the full bridge has 4 IGBTs, right? So that translates into higher cost, higher switching losses, higher air conduction losses. Right? So that is a difference, And the half bridge submodule lacks the ability to block and control fault current. Comparably, the full bridge has that capability to be able to block fault current and control the fault current and voltage to 0. So when you're utilizing the full bridge converter technology, you don't need a DC circuit breaker in your DC transmission system. On the other hand, if you utilize the half bridge submodule as your MMC converter, then you need a DC circuit breaker in your DC transmission system. You need a DC circuit breaker on each end, right? Because the half bridge submodule does not have that blocking capability for a DC fault current and the ability to be able to control the DC fault current to 0. Right. So the disruptive technology in this MMC converters is the one that is enhancing, that is basically making it feasible for the springing of a lot of these wind farms, right? Okay, next is the goal, right? The goal to achieve a 30 to 40% share of renewable energy and green as a whole, right? And to leverage on global efforts to reduce greenhouse emissions by the year 2030 and also net zero carbon reduction by the year 2050. Next is renewable. It's self-sustained, right? Okay, so comparably, let's do some comparison, right? Okay, so if we compare a wind farm to a coal plant, right? Okay, the coal plant, once the pulverized coal goes into the boiler, right? And the boiler is ignited and it burns the coal, right? And the heat from the coal basically is the one that heats the steam, the water from the boiler walls, and turns it into steam, right? So once that coal is burnt, it is used. Another pulverized coal is needed, right? So that is not renewable, right? It takes an extra cost, right, to get a pulverized coal to replenish the other one that you have already burnt to create steam, right? On the other hand, wind is renewable and self-sustaining, right? The only problem you have with it is its intermittency, right? It makes it very difficult to basically dispatch it because even if you predict it, you cannot guarantee it, basically. So it is not dispatchable, but it is self-sustaining when it is flowing, right? Because the wind is free, right? Let me put it that way. So that is why it's self-sustaining. Now let's go to the next slide and let's talk about disadvantages for the wind energy, right? Okay, so the beautiful picture, as you see on the right-hand side, is a wind farm that has many wind turbines, right? Okay, so this is a single wind turbine, another wind turbine, another wind turbine, spaced, based on design, right? And based on the size of the blades and the size of the tower and the amount of individualized megawatts that it is providing. So this is a wind turbine that is for onshore, right? It is located on land. So that is what it means by onshore, right? So there are two types of wind turbines, right? We have one for onshore and another one for offshore. Okay, so the offshore one is the one that is located in the sea, right? And the onshore one that is the one that is, as you can see in the picture, is located on land. And a lot of them are located on flatlands or mountainous hilly places, because a lot of studies is done to find out the wind velocity over a long period of time, right? And after the feasibility studies is done, that is when they determine the need to locate a wind farm at a particular area, based on the average wind velocity that has been documented for about a year or more. So the disadvantages is that it has a high initial investment cost, right? And that is perfectly true, right? Think about it, the cost of each wind turbine, right? If let's say you have 200 of them, right? And each onshore wind turbine, the maximum you can get is about 5 megawatts, right? I think quite recently they came up with one that was about 6 point something megawatts, right? But let's put it at 5 megawatts as the maximum wind turbine rating for onshore facility, right? But for offshore, currently it is at 15 megawatts, right? And what is the reason? Because offshore you have a larger spacing, larger area, right? Okay, and the size of the wind turbine, and all the noise that it creates and the blading and all this, the offshore facility right out far in the ocean, it doesn't disturb anybody, right? Okay, but on land, based on city ordinances, based on wildlife, based on birds and all those things, it has to be limited, on the amount of noise that these wind farms emit. So that is why there's a limited rating on these. I know that there's still, um, 6 point something megawatts wind turbine that is going to go into commercialization very soon for onshore. Okay, so one of the other disadvantages is that wind farm is not reliable, and that is perfectly true, right? You know that the wind, you can predict wind that is going to flow, right? But the wind, can flow for some period of time and then just stop, right? Just like, the weather, you can predict the weather is going to rain, then it rains, then, it stops. Or you can predict that it's going to rain and it will not rain. So that is, basically one of the disadvantages of the wind as a resource for the wind turbines. It is not reliable, and it can be intermittent. It comes in, blows, then it stops, then it comes in. And remember that, these wind turbines, there is something they call cutting velocity, right? Cutting power, right? So there has to be a baseline, there has to be a threshold of wind velocity that is flowing on these wind turbines to achieve a cutting power before the wind turbine will even be energized. So the typical wind speed for a cutting speed is about 4 miles per second, right? So that is the wind velocity, right? That will allow this each wind turbine to be energized, right? Okay. So once it cuts in, then basically, it starts basically generating, growing the required power, and basically it reaches, let's say, about 11 or 12 miles per second. Then there's something they call cutout, right? Cutout is about 25 miles per second. So that's when you have a wind gust. So when you have a wind gust, basically that can cause a damage to these wind turbines. So that is when you need to de-energize, basically, cut out these wind turbines. Okay, next is noise, and that's, perfectly true, right? Okay, so these wind turbines, some of them are located in mountainous areas, some of them are located on hilly areas, some of them are located on flatlands, some of them are located in areas that are close to residential areas, right? Okay, so based on city ordinances, right? Based on Department of Wildlife, requirements, right? Wildlife, they have birds, they have bats, they have other animals, right? So there is a certain criteria, level, threshold, maximum noise that can be emitted by this wind turbine blade. So that basically boils down into the megawatt rating and the size of the blades, right? So even then, that noise, sometimes can be uncomfortable, right? So on onshore facility, that noise can be very, not appealing to the ears, right? But when it is located, far off the ocean, very far off the ocean, then nobody cares about it, So that is why far off the ocean, you have a larger wind turbine sizes, 550 megawatts, and there are even technologies to achieve 18 megawatts, right? And with very bigger size of blades, right? That can make a lot of noise. Nobody cares about it, right? Okay. Next is a visual impact, right? Okay, so as much as wind energy, it's renewable, very good, and it's helping us to achieve a net, carbon zero by the year 2050, and also a greenhouse emission reduction of 80% by the year 2030. On the other hand, if you see a lot of this, and you have to be honest with you, if you see a lot of this, wind turbines in your neighborhood, close to your neighborhood, it creates a, very, clumsy, visual impact, right? It's like, you don't want to see it around close to residential area. You rather want to see it far away from residential areas. Something like that, as you can see in the picture, where it is located on mountainous areas, on hilly areas, far away from residential areas, that is good enough, right? But when it is, closer to residential areas, its visual impact that it creates can be very, annoying, right? Next is the birds, right? Okay, so, Department of Wildlife, it, has certain species of birds that it protects, right? Okay, so some of these birds, fly and basically they get hit by the blades, and basically, so there is a certain number of birds, wildlife and birds and all those things that is basically given. You cannot exceed that amount. That is given to these investors and developers for wind farms, right? So, and I'm pretty much sure, the rest of the world, Europe and all those things, is the same thing applies over there. But here in the United States, there's certain count. They count the number of birds, but the blades are strike. And basically, you shouldn't exceed, a certain number, within a certain period of time, right? Next is it is located very remote, right? Far away from nowhere, especially when you have, wind farms on this very hilly, treacherous, and think about it. During winter time, if you have to go, that can be treacherous, right? Okay, and also think about it. Very far away from on the ocean for the offshore facilities, right? Okay, and with very high, winds and high waves, right? So that itself, can be very challenging sometimes. Now, let's talk about the advantages of offshore wind farm, right? Okay, so like I indicated, offshore wind farms far away, very large space, right? Okay, so you have a higher wind speeds, right? You do not have to worry about wind speeds that you will predict. Then it can fail you. It will blow for some time, then it's going to stop, right? The winds are stronger, even stronger, right? So you probably will be thinking about, excuse me, are you going to get a wind gust? That is excessive wind speeds, right? So that is what, for offshore facilities, that is what you have to think about, right? Because, so the winds are available, right? Available, because of the ocean itself, right? Okay. And also you have a larger geographic area, right? When comparability onshore facility, you are thinking about the land size, the cost of the land, right? And also setting encroachment, right? Or right on the sea, you don't have to worry much about that, right? The sea is available to you, right? For you to utilize as much as possible. So as such, you are able to achieve a larger megawatt output. So think about it. Let's do some math here, right? Okay, so you have an offshore facility, right? And you have each wind turbine rated at 15 megawatts, right? Okay, let's use 15 megawatts, between 12 megawatts and 15 megawatts, right? But let's pivot on a 15 megawatts. And onshore facility, you have a 5 megawatts wind turbine, right? So if you have a 200 wind turbines that you have as a wind farm for your offshore facility, then on the onshore facility, you also have a 200 wind turbines, right? Right? And matter of fact, for onshore facility, 200 wind turbines might be a challenge. Sometimes you cannot even get that land to achieve that 200. So let's say 100, right? Okay, so 100 times 5, that's 500 megawatts. On the other hand, let's go to offshore, right? You have 200 wind turbines. Offshore, you can have 200 wind turbines because of the faster sea that is out there, right? So 200 times 50 megawatts, that is 3,000 megawatts. That's the amount. That's 3 gigawatts. That's the amount of electric wind farm power that you can achieve, comparably, offshore to onshore, right? So you can achieve a larger megawatt output, right? And also, the area is free for you, and basically the requirement and the stringence, to install wind farms on the ocean is much less comparable to onshore facilities. Okay, so now let's talk about disadvantages. In the previous slide, we talked about the advantages of basically implementing a wind farm at an offshore wind, over the ocean, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the disadvantages. Okay, so the picture you see over here on the right-hand side is basically a substation platform, right? Okay, so for on-land facility, unlike wind farms, right? You definitely have an substation that is located in closer proximity to the wind farms, right? Same applies for offshore wind farms. You have a substation, right? But this substation is elevated, right? Right? With these supports, right? So the whole substation elements, switch gears, converter transformers, converters are all located here. Cabling, right? They are all located here. So you see that in between all these wind farms, there's something they call the cabling. Is called inter-array of cables, right? You can have a radial, then star arrangement. You can have a different arrangements. Sometimes you can have a redundancy in the arrangement. It's all based on cost, right? The more redundancy you have, the higher your cost, right? To achieve that closed loop, you can have other loops. In that basically allows you that to best generate electric power to your connection point if you should basically have a fault in one of the feeders. Next is the first one is the difficulty in the design because of the ocean environment. As you can see, the ocean is very harsh, has a very harsh climate, right? Some of the height of the waves can be as tall as a skyscraper, right? So think about it. So that is why feasibility studies is done. Even that if you do the feasibility to determine the amount of ocean waves in that area, there's a whole lot of natural disasters that can occur, right? Hurricanes, tsunamis, and all those things. So those are some of the things that basically comes into play when you are designing a wind turbine for the ocean environment. And matter of fact, if you have oceans that are very deep, that have a deeper floors, right? Especially floors that are greater than 100 meters, right? Then basically the floating wind turbines comes into play, right? And if you have to, because if it's below 30 to 50 meters, then basically you can use a fixed bottom, right? But something greater than 30 meters and above, then you want to use the floating one because of cost effectiveness, economics, right? Then that is when they use all those floating wind turbines. Next is the difficulty in maintenance, right? Okay, so the difficulty in maintenance is because it is far away, middle of nowhere, right? You have to use ships to navigate in between these, right? Sometimes if you have to schedule a maintenance, then you can have unprecedented weathers, harsh climates, right? That makes it very difficult for you to schedule and implement your maintenance, right? And sometimes too the maintenance can be costly, right? Yeah, because for instance, if you're not careful and you don't select the type of wind turbine that can withstand these harsh climates, then basically there's gonna be a lot of failures that will occur, and especially because the offshore environment, usually the permanent magnetic synchronous generators is preferred, the type 4 wind turbines, comparable to the type 3. Yeah, because of the salt environment that can cause a lot of salt deposits and rust, right? And that can cause a lot of problems for these wind turbines. Next is operating cost can be higher. Yes, and that is perfectly true. Far away from all the way up in the ocean that these wind turbines are located, right? So that itself can cause a lot of operational headaches, and also as much as it is very supportive, wind energy helps basically to achieve all the requirements of mitigating global warming, but one of the challenges is because of its higher cost. Next is very expensive for installation and construction, and that is perfectly true, right? If you have a deep ocean, then basically you have to have a floating, and then you have to have there's something they call mooring, cables, so that will hold these cables in place. And so think about it. This wind turbine goes like this, just like you have something like a buoyancy effect, where basically the mooring cables basically supports if you have waves, if you have some perturbance, if you have some disturbance of the surface of the ocean, then that is when those cables support the movement of the wind turbines. So with that comes to the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for your listening. Yes, and I hope that you love this presentation. So don't forget to select the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Select the subscribe button and look forward for more nice, beautiful, interesting presentations, right? For your learning curve, for your development, and you young engineers out there, for your growth. Right? Thank you so much.